Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our webinar, and thank you so much for joining today or watching it later. We're excited to have you here. So before we start, I would like to remind you all to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any upcoming events. And please share the video right now with anybody who you think might be interested in purchasing from one amazing vehicle we'll tell you about. So first, let me just introduce myself. I'm Margarita Ellinger, and I'm the co-founder of Taika Translations. And we do everything language, everything you could imagine related to language. And Jake, I guess you can introduce yourself and introduce our guest as well.
Yeah, thanks, Maggie. My name is Jake Gardner. I work in business development at Taika Translations. And today we have the pleasure of hosting Lyndsey Rieth. She is a program manager at TIPS. She's going to help us navigate the TIPS, which is a contract vehicle and a purchasing system that is basically called TIPS because it's the Interlocal Purchasing System. Lyndsey has more than 8 years of experience with TIPS, helping public agencies basically simplify and improve their purchasing processes. So welcome, Lyndsey. Thank you for
Yeah, thank you
coming
so much for
today and
joining.
joining us.
Yes, thank y'all for having me. Well, I'll just get into a little bit more about my background, I guess. Is that where y'all want me to start?
Awesome.
Like I said, Jake said, I've been with TIPS for over 8.5 years. So I am a program manager. I actually worked for a nonprofit before this, and then before that, I was in the retail merchandising world. I actually have a BS of textile and apparels from the University of Texas. So I was a buyer and all that. So coming into this world of public procurement is really interesting and actually kind of full circle because I used to be a buyer on the other side of the scope, I guess. And now I'm helping our vendors and our members connect together kind of as a consultant between the two. So it's really great that I get to use that kind of knowledge that I had in my previous world. It was in the private sector, of course, but now I get to work with the public sector, which is really great. But as a program manager, I spend about 50% of my time with the members. So school districts, cities, counties, higher education, nonprofits, et cetera. And the other 50% with our vendors, like Taika. Am I saying it right? I always feel like I'm saying it wrong. So yes, I train the vendors and then I also train the members and I help connect the dots between the two. So it's really important that our members are getting the best value for whatever they need to purchase. We have over 100 contract categories, and so we have vendors that can sell everything from roofing to interpretation materials and software to furniture, etc. So that's kind of what I do in my role as a TIPS program manager.
Oh, that's really a lot of things you mentioned. So if I just asked you, so what is the most rewarding aspect, like as you're working with both with the vendors and with the buyers, like where do you feel?
Yeah, I just really love all the people that I get to work with. Every day is different, and I get to work with all walks of life and get to meet new people every day. But the most rewarding thing is the relationship that I can help build between the members and the vendors, and just knowing that we are serving our members and helping them get what they need to purchase at a good value, and also quickly and obviously, compliance is an issue, for most members. They want to make sure they're doing it legally. So we're just here to help make sure that they get the best value and the best bang for their buck, for purchasing whatever they need to do. So.
So you already mentioned some frustrations, like so what frustration do you see both on the buyer side and on the vendor side?
Yeah, so most of the time for our members, it's, putting out a bid out on the street is one of their main ways of procuring. And that takes a lot of time and money that they don't really want to, spend or have the time for, nor do they typically have the resources, the manpower, to put all these bids out on the street. So TIPS acts as another purchasing vehicle for them. And we've already done the public procurement process for them. So it's really great to see them when they can use our contracts and ease those frustrations of having to spend the time and money to put out their own bids on the street. And also just helping them know that they're getting a compliant purchase and then they feel comfortable about that in case they ever get audited in the future.
So if we compare that, like putting out an RFP to just purchasing straight through tips, like how is this different? Like, okay, how much do you need to do to actually purchase through tips?
Yeah, so it's really easy. You can just go to our website. You can find the vendor on our website, and then the contracts that they hold are all listed on their profile pages. And then you just reach out to the vendor and then you request a quote. And then if you approve the quote, then you can move forward with writing your purchase order or getting a contract from the vendor, depending on what you're purchasing. And then you can move forward from there. So it's a very easy process. It can be a very quick process, obviously quicker than, putting out a formal RFP on their own, waiting to get vendors' responses, going through all those responses, and then sometimes worrying about whether or not they got the right vendor. When you put a bid out on the street, there's no pre-vetted vendors, typically responding. So they're vetting all those vendors themselves. And so with tips, we've done all that for them. We're doing a vetting process and making them feel comfortable that they're using a vendor that we've already put through our process. So it's a really great tool for them.
So if we're talking about you vetting the vendor, like how much work do you do to actually check the vendor out? Like what is the process on that side?
Yes, it's a very legal process. So all of our RFPs are put out in the national paper in the USA Today. So all of our bids are national bids. So they're put out in the USA Today, and then we do some smaller publications like the Pittsburgh Gazette, et cetera. We are a part of Region 8 Education Service Center. They act as our lead agency. And so all of them are put out on the street, formal RFPs. And then vendors like yourself respond to those RFPs for the opportunity to win a contract. You have to score high enough on the bid. You get various points for various things on the bid. And then if you are awarded a contract, not everybody is, obviously, then you would become a TIPS awarded vendor, and then you could do business with any of our membership, as long as, their agencies allow it. There are different rules at different agencies across states. So every agency is different. So
Absolutely. So what would you say for an entity who would like to be a TIPS member, but they're not TIPS member yet? How hard is it to become a member?
it is very easy. Depending on what state you're in, you can just go to our website, go to the membership tab, and then it'll prompt you whether you're in Texas or other states. If you're in Texas, which is where my territory is based, of course, then you would need a TIPS interlocal agreement. And then typically your organization would require you to have like a board resolution, city council resolution, et cetera. So those are there for you to download and complete and send in. If you're in other states, sometimes the laws are different. They may require you to have an interlocal or they may not. If you don't require an interlocal, then you could just get signed up on our website. So all of the prompts are on there for you to figure that out. We are here to help you, of course. The program managers in your area can help get you signed up. Membership is free though, and it's good for the life of the entity. So once you get signed up, you can use any of our vendors and contracts across the board.
Awesome. So could you also share what kind of organizations can use TIPS? And if you just look at the organizations you have right now, which ones are getting the most benefit?
Yeah, so we can do business with any public entities. So K through 12 districts, higher education institutions, municipalities, nonprofits, churches, airports, any other public entities that are available that want to be part of us, then they can use TIPS as well. And you wanted to know which ones are getting the most benefit.
Yes.
I would say that across the board, since we started in 2002, we probably do the most business with K through 12 school districts across the board, but we have grown exponentially nationwide. And so I would say that we've really ramped up our business with the higher education institutions and the municipalities as well. So I really wouldn't know like percentage wise or anything what we do. We really do a lot of business across the board.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Jake, you want to jump in and talk about compliance? It's probably your stronger side.
Yeah, I do a lot of work with compliance on, public procurement. So I guess, Lindsay, compliance is a probably a really big concern these days for, people doing business with public contracts and public procurement. How do you guys at TIPS ensure that, all the procurement through the system is compliant with federal and state laws? What are safeguards or what do you guys do basically with TIPS?
Well, we have an amazing legal team that writes all of our RFPs and RFQs, and so I'm just going to leave it at that. They really keep us in line and make sure that we're up to date with all the laws and rules and regulations. But if anything, compliance for tips means that we're really here to verify that the pricing that the vendors are submitting through their RFPs is the pricing that's reflected in the POs and contracts that come through for our members. So that is one of the biggest things is that we're making sure that they're getting the correct pricing. So.
Yeah, I think that's great. I understand, you know, being on both sides of it, having in my career, I think it makes a lot of sense to have someone as act as that because, it protects both the vendor and the purchaser to make sure that, each side is being, fairly compensated or fairly charged, and that someone is monitoring the contract. So I think that's a very valuable service that TIPS brings to the
Yes.
table. And as both as either a member or a vendor, I think you can benefit greatly, and stand up to audits too, because when you do get audited, things like that, you have a very robust compliance group behind you. So that's really important, I think. So yes, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So if an organization decides to join TIPS, how quickly can this organization start purchasing through the platform?
It's very quick. So as soon as we receive their documents or if they sign up online, depending on what state they're in, then we will get them signed up as a member and they can start purchasing through any of our vendors from then.
Awesome. I've also seen the instructions like, okay, how do you do it? Like, you need to get the quote from the vendor, you need to send it in. So could you explain this a little bit more? Because like when you look at it, you feel like, man, there's like some kind of steps I need to do. Like, how do you do exactly? How long will it take TIPS to approve this quote? Like, how does it look?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it is different depending on what contract they're using. We do have a full construction team. So if they're doing a construction contract, it may take a little bit longer, to verify a proposal or something, especially if it's involving jock or anything like that. Obviously, that's not in y'all's arena. But for just regular commodities, services, things like that, it's pretty quick. We do ask that our members, send us the quote and POs so that we can verify pricing and things like that before you move on with a purchase or before a member moves on with a purchase. But we do have some automated vendors as well that do self-report. So sometimes you'll send those POs directly onto the vendor if they're an automated vendor. But it's a very simple process. You just reach out to the vendor for a quote. And when you're ready to proceed with a PO, or if you're getting a contract from the vendor, then you'll send those to us, and then you'll move through the process after that, just like you would buying from a vendor. So
Awesome. Could you also tell, like, okay, we have seen the list of TIPS members, and there's like a lot, like thousands of different contacts, different entities, and some of them are not active. Like, I'm sure you've seen that too from the reports. So they kind of got on, just maybe used the vehicle a couple times, and then it just kind of dropped it. So, what would be your recommendations? Like, okay, if the organization gets some tips, what is the further steps, like how to implement actually using tips in the organization? Like maybe have some success stories from the entities who are doing great and really using the vehicle.
yeah, I mean, for members, the best thing they can do is to reach out to their program manager and get a training, just like we would train our vendors. We do a good job of reaching out to our membership, and not everybody's interested in getting a training. So I would say that that's probably the best thing to do. But there's a lot of things on our website. We have a member portal available for our membership. We also have a tips marketplace where they can go on and purchase from a lot of our vendors that way. So there's a lot of tools and things that the program managers like myself can help navigate. So I think the best thing is just to reach out to the program manager in their area to help them get going and to make sure that they're getting the best out of the membership.
Okay, do you know any examples of some entities like that they have multiple roles, or like I don't know, is there like a member portal, or how does a okay, who can access tips from, like, let's take some kind of school. Usually is it just like one purchasing officer, or some teachers may access it? Because I know we face that, like, okay, as a teacher actual or as a special education, personnel, they need to order something, but they don't really know where to go and where to find somebody.
Yeah, I
Maybe you have
mean, they
seen
can
like
have
how the schools
multiple
do it.
users. Yeah, we don't limit. I mean, as far as I know, I've seen a bunch of users under each entity. So they can put as many users as they want. It's really up to the entity and how much access they want to give people, because they are making purchases and they do have POs in their member portals. So it's about, keeping tabs really on what's going on with their entity. So that's completely up to them and how many users they want to give access to, et cetera. From my experience, most school districts don't allow like teachers to have access and things. All of the purchasing runs up through the procurement offices or purchasing offices, just so that they can keep track of all the purchases being made. But like I said, every entity is different. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, I have a quick question. So, is there any data or public information on how much Tips has been able to save its users?
Um, I mean, we have some data, not that I know of, honestly. We have some reporting tools and things for the vendors in our vendor portal, but I don't know of anything to show savings like that. Some of our vendors do offer discounts, but it's not a requirement. So it's probably more of a
But
vendor to
I'm
vendor
sure, like,
basis.
if you actually just calculate all the times that was saved, there was like a lot of time and a lot of labor hours that were saved from the agencies for sure, as well
Oh,
as from the
yeah. I mean,
vendors.
absolutely. I mean, that's what we're here to do, is to save them time and money. So, yeah, using a co-op is by far more economical typically, I mean, than putting out a bid out on the street. But some entities, that is their prerogative if they still want to put bids out on the street. So,
Yeah,
Really
I mean,
quickly,
it's
Maggie,
up to them.
I have a thought on that. I think it's beneficial in so many ways because, I mean, just so Taika Translations, I do a lot of our contracting and contract proposals through public procurement. You think about how much time um, the agencies who put the procurement out spend on reviewing the procurement, right? You have to go through a pre-review before you send it out, then you send it out, and then you answer questions about it, and then it comes back in. You have proposals come back in, and then you have to review all the proposals, and then you have to award and things like. Tips has taken basically that whole process and removed everything out of it and said, we've done all the legwork. You really just have to, you know, join our team and use our contract. I mean, really, that's a lot for I think, especially for municipalities and school districts, that takes a lot of manpower, maybe weeks, if not months of manpower out of, the procurement
yeah.
process. And same thing for vendors as well. If you know that instead of responding to, RFPs from every single agency, now you have a multitude of agencies that can buy from you. I think it makes a lot of sense, on both sides of the equation. So just my thought from a business development perspective. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it saves a lot of hours on both sides for sure. And you can imagine, like, all the hours, that Jake spends putting a bid together, that will be billed to the client anyway, because somebody needs to pay Jake. So for all the bids he's putting together, all the replies, that we still need, somebody still needs to be paid for those labor hours. So if this is just like you just submit a quote, I mean, that makes it so much easier for the vendors as well. And I think you'll get your result way faster too. Because we have seen a lot of, especially like working with schools, we have seen so many people frustrated because, okay, they have some kind of agreement maybe, or they don't have any agreement. And I mean, we had schools just come to us just Googling, just because they need to have somebody on the phone right now, or like the next day, they just need to Google to find somebody who can like cover their need. But if they already have somebody vetted, I mean, that's really great. I think they should really use it more. That's 100%. Okay. Do you have anything else, Jake?
No, thank you. That's all I've got.
Okay. Let's see. I don't know. Maybe you can just share one of the success stories that you have seen, or like one of your favorite agencies or clients that you have really seen them using tips, and that has helped them greatly.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to pinpoint one. I do serve like over 600 agencies. I hate to just
Oh,
shout,
wow. Yeah.
give kudos to one because they're all amazing. They really are in their own right. But I see some of the other questions in here. Do you want me to answer some of those?
Oh, yes. Just
Like
actually some
what are
questions.
the the
Sure. Go
benefits of
ahead.
tips? So some of the best benefits of tips is our support that we give to members. We are just known for having incredible support, whether that's through program managers like myself or our internal team. We have excellent internal staff. And also our legal team who writes all of our RFPs, like I mentioned before. But then having that construction team as well, that is a rarity with co-ops in general. So just having that support is one of the best benefits. Also saving the time and money. And then, just being here to connect the dots between our vendors and our members and making sure they're getting what they need. So those are some of the greatest things. Another great thing is in Texas, we have a rewards program where we give money back to our membership. So that is just for Texas members, but it is a very awesome benefit. So not only are they maybe getting a discount from the vendor's contract, but they have the opportunity to maybe get a rewards check at the end of the year. So, so that's another benefit. But the list kind of goes on. We've done a really good job in the past. We've been around since 2002, and a lot of our members have been really happy with the contracts that we put out and the services and vendors that we provide. So I think those are some of the
Awesome.
best.
So you mentioned construction. So what are other most common products or services that
I would
public entities buy from tips?
Yeah, so we have over 100 contract categories, so we kind of, provide it all, products and services. But besides construction, I would say our biggest categories are probably technology and furniture. And then, outside of that, we get into more niche, contract categories like the one that y'all hold. So yeah, we really do it all, from nuts to bolts and the kitchen sink, everything. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That was a really cool comment, that we're from Texas as well. So go Texas, go. Even tips benefits are big in Texas. That was a good comment. Um,
I have a
and as,
question.
yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Can you describe a little bit? I mean, TIPS is very active in trade shows and conferences and events. Can you kind of talk about some of the events that you guys have and like what you typically see at events as far as
Yeah.
tips?
Yeah, so that's a huge part of our business. In fact, I did like 29 conferences last year. So we
Wow.
really believe in conferences, and it's a great way to get out of your offices and connect between vendors and members. So I highly recommend that to all of our vendors, when they come on board to exhibit, and make sure that you can attend and be there to help support our membership. But we do all of the above. So we have, shows that support our school districts and shows that support higher education or municipalities or kind of everything in between. So they are very important to our vendors' business. They allow them to showcase what they do, talk about their services, bring products to the shows, etc. So yeah, we love getting out there and supporting our membership and vendors that way. A lot of the times at the shows, that's when we meet a lot of new vendors, and then obviously help connect our membership to those vendors that are there. So it's a really, really awesome part of what we do as program managers.
Thank you.
So what are your main events? Like you said 29, was it just in Texas or was it nationwide?
Mostly in Texas, because that's where my territory. I cover Houston, Austin, Beaumont, and Huntsville areas. So regions 4, 5, 6, and 13. So mostly in Texas. So I go outside of my territory in Texas, but I only did one nationwide show last year, which was NIGP. That's one of our largest municipality shows.
Oh, wow. So are your events usually as a like industry based or is it all mixed? Like, okay,
Typically,
like what event should we go to? Like, because we definitely
yeah.
we definitely love events.
I would say that like y'all are probably more geared towards the school districts and things that y'all do, but you could also do municipalities as well. So it just all depends on your focus of your audience and who you want to get in front of. But there's definitely certain organizations that support the school districts and then et cetera. So it's just whatever whatever your focus is. But I can definitely help y'all figure out which are the best for you.
Yeah, that's really great. So on this topic, we have another question. So how can vendors promote their services and products to TIPS members? Okay,
Yeah,
events, we just spoke about that. So is there anything else?
Yeah, so the best thing you can do is just reach out to our membership as a tips vendor and then let them know that you have a contract and what it entails and what you can sell under that contract. Because then when they need you, they'll know who to call. So instead of them putting a bid out on the street when they need something, they already have a contact where the relationship they've already started to build, that they can reach out to that vendor to get help.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, we were just talking about this. I mean, multiple times, like especially us going to some other conferences. Still like we all work remotely. Okay, we don't meet, that often in person, but still those human connections are so important.
Yes.
Just the connections you're building, both
Yes.
with your vendors and with your clients.
Yeah, we love our shows. I really can't say enough about how important those conferences are for both the vendors and the members. So it's really nice to be in person again.
Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree. The screen is just not the same. It's just not the same. Okay, Jake, is there anything else?
I don't have any other questions. I do want to give Lyndsey a huge shout out and thank you because when we came on
Absolutely.
board to TIPS, she answered a bunch of my questions and got on the phone with me and walked me through quite a bit of the things, and gave us a lot of insight. So, to the members and to the vendors out there that, are either contemplating or are using TIPS, this is a great program and they have great people like Lyndsey inside. I can attest to that because we were kind of lost on what we were going to be doing with it. And as soon as I got on the phone with her, she gave me a whole bunch of guides and directions. So use these contracts and I would highly recommend TIPS to anyone who's looking for co-op solutions because they've kind of done all the heavy lifting for you and it's a great organization. So thank you, Lyndsey, very much for being
Thank y'all so
here.
much. It's very nice. Yes, but please
Yeah, it's
reach out
just
to me if you have any
really,
questions.
it's really a co-op with a human touch. So thank you so much for sharing all this good and useful information for current and future TIPS members and TIPS vendors.
You're welcome. Anytime.
And I hope to see you at the actual event.
I hope so too. Yes, please come to the conferences. They're wonderful. So let me
Thank
know
you
if I
so
can help
much.
y'all in any way. I'm here to answer any questions and get you going if you're not a TIPS member.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you
Thank
everybody
you.
for joining or watching it later.
Okay. Y'all have a good day.
Okay, you too.